There is a strange moment right before someone finally reveals what has been hidden inside them for a very long time. They pause. Their expression changes. They look at you differently, as if they are carrying something too important to put into words. Even when nothing is said, you can feel it. Something in the atmosphere shifts. Something unspoken hangs between you. What this really means is simple. People do not hide deep feelings because those feelings are weak. They hide them because those feelings matter too much. The more important someone becomes, the more frightening it feels to risk losing them. So they wait. They observe. They stay quiet. They convince themselves there will be a better moment. They tell themselves they need more certainty. But as time passes, the feeling grows stronger, and eventually it becomes harder to hide than to admit. One of the first signs is emotional inconsistency. One day they seem unusually close to you. Not just friendly, but genuinely present. They pay attention to every detail you share. They listen carefully. They remember things most people would forget. Their replies come quickly. Their energy feels warmer. There is a sense of connection that feels different from normal interactions. Then something changes. The next day they become distant. Their responses are shorter. Their attention seems elsewhere. They avoid lingering conversations. Eye contact becomes brief. The warmth that was there before suddenly feels hidden behind a wall. At first it feels confusing. It can seem like mixed signals. It can seem as if they are unsure about you. But what is really happening has very little to do with uncertainty about their feelings. What you are seeing is internal conflict. When someone has secretly loved you for a long time, their emotions rarely remain steady. They move back and forth between desire and fear. One moment their feelings push them closer. Their heart wants them to say something. Their emotions urge them to stop hiding. Every part of them wants to take a chance. Then fear arrives. Fear reminds them of everything they could lose. Fear tells them that one conversation could change everything. Fear convinces them that silence is safer than honesty. So they move closer. Then they retreat. They become open, then guarded. They reach toward you emotionally. Then they pull themselves back before they reveal too much. It is not because they do not know how they feel. It is because what they feel has become difficult to manage. The closer they get to admitting the truth, the harder it becomes to act normal around you. You begin to notice it in small moments. They start a conversation with enthusiasm and warmth. Then suddenly they become quiet. They seem completely engaged one moment and emotionally unavailable the next. Their behavior feels like a struggle because it is a struggle. They are standing between two fears. One fear tells them they might lose you by staying silent forever. The other fear tells them they might lose you by finally telling the truth. And at this point, they still have not decided which fear feels greater. Another sign appears when they keep returning to shared memories. Out of nowhere, they bring up something small. It might be a conversation you barely remember. It might be a simple moment that seemed ordinary to you. It might be a detail that disappeared from your mind shortly after it happened. But they remember it perfectly. They remember the words. They remember the setting. They remember the feeling. Sometimes they even remember details you have completely forgotten. At first, it seems casual. It feels like simple nostalgia. It sounds like they are just recalling old experiences. But if you pay attention, you notice a pattern. They do not just remember those moments. They return to them repeatedly. The same stories appear again and again. The same memories keep finding their way back into conversations. The same moments seem to hold a special meaning for them. This happens because those memories are connected to emotions they never expressed. When someone quietly falls in love, there is usually a moment that becomes unforgettable. It is not always dramatic. It is not always obvious. Sometimes it is surprisingly simple. Maybe you showed kindness during a difficult day. Maybe you listened when nobody else did. Maybe you encouraged them when they needed support. Maybe you made them feel understood. Maybe you were simply being yourself. Whatever happened, Something changed inside them during that moment. What seemed ordinary to you became deeply meaningful to them. That memory became an emotional anchor. Every time they revisit it, they are reconnecting with the feeling they experienced when their view of you changed. They are returning to the beginning. They are returning to the moment when admiration became attachment. They are returning to the moment when friendship started becoming something more. For you, it may have been another day in your life. For them, it became a chapter they never stopped revisiting. As their feelings continue growing, those memories begin surfacing more often. Without fully realizing it, they keep bringing them back into the present. Part of them hopes you will see the meaning they have attached to those moments. Part of them hopes you will understand what they have never found the courage to explain. Another sign appears in the way they look at you. At some point, their eye contact changes. It is not always obvious. In fact, it can be incredibly subtle. But once you notice it, it becomes difficult to ignore. Their gaze lingers a little longer than normal. Their eyes seem softer. There is warmth in the way they look at you. Sometimes there is admiration. Sometimes there is affection. Sometimes there is a depth that feels difficult to explain. Then, the moment you notice it, they quickly look away. That pattern is important. They look, then they retreat. They hold eye contact, then they break it. They seem drawn toward you, but at the same time they appear nervous about being seen. This happens because eye contact is one of the hardest things to control when emotions are real. People can carefully choose their words. People can monitor their actions. People can create emotional distance if they try hard enough. But the eyes often reveal feelings before the mind can hide them. When someone has loved you silently for a long time, looking at you can become overwhelming. In those moments, everything they have been trying to keep hidden rises to the surface. Every feeling, every hope, every fear, every imagined future. It all exists behind a single glance. That is why they sometimes look away so quickly. The connection feels too revealing. The moment feels too honest. And yet they keep looking because part of them cannot help it. Part of them is searching for reassurance. Part of them is searching for possibility. Part of them is searching for evidence that what they feel might not exist only inside their own heart. The closer they get to admitting the truth, the more difficult it becomes to hide it in their eyes. Eventually, another pattern starts to appear. Their questions begin to feel different. Not obvious, not direct, but different. There is a deeper purpose behind them. They become more curious about your thoughts on connection, commitment, attraction, and relationships. The questions seem casual on the surface, yet they carry more meaning than they appear to. They are not simply making conversation, they are quietly gathering information. They are trying to understand your emotional world without exposing their own feelings. Before someone risks revealing what has been hidden for so long, they often try to measure the emotional distance between themselves and the person they care about. They want to know whether there is hope. They want to know whether they are moving toward acceptance or disappointment. So they listen carefully. They observe your reactions. They pay attention to what excites you. They notice what makes you uncomfortable. They notice what makes you hesitate. Every answer becomes important. Every detail feels significant. Because beneath those conversations is a person trying to decide whether it is finally safe to be honest. They cannot openly ask certain questions. They cannot comfortably express their discomfort. They cannot simply admit that something affects them more than it should. So instead of saying it directly, those feelings appear in smaller and quieter ways. You might notice a slight change in their mood. You might notice a slower response than usual. You might notice a subtle shift in their attention that seems small on the surface, but feels different underneath. Nothing dramatic happens, nothing obvious enough to point to with certainty. Yet something changes. You feel it, even when you cannot explain it. The reason is simple. Beneath their calm appearance, a quiet fear has started growing. It is the fear that someone else could take the place they secretly hope to have in your life. It is the fear that they might lose you before they ever find the courage to tell you how much you mean to them. As those feelings grow stronger, another sign begins to appear. Their presence becomes more constant, not overwhelming, not excessive, not obvious, but suddenly they seem to be there more often than before. They reply faster. They reach out more frequently. They start conversations without needing a specific reason. They check in on you, even when nothing important is happening. At first, it feels natural. It feels like they simply enjoy talking to you. And maybe they do. But there is usually something deeper happening beneath the surface. This is not random attention. It is intentional closeness. When someone gets closer to revealing their feelings, something inside them begins to speed up. Time starts to feel different. The possibility of losing the opportunity becomes more real. They begin to understand that waiting forever is not actually safe. The longer they remain silent, the greater the chance that life will move forward without them. Without realizing it, they begin investing more of themselves, more time, more energy, more attention, more emotional presence. They remember details you mentioned days ago. They follow up on conversations that seemed unimportant. They ask about things most people would forget. They stay engaged longer than necessary. Conversations stretch on because ending them feels disappointing. It is not simply about talking, it is about maintaining connection. It is about feeling close to you. Deep down, they are trying to strengthen something that already exists between you. Part of them hopes that if the bond becomes strong enough, the truth will not feel shocking when it finally comes out. Part of them hopes that honesty will feel like a natural next step instead of a risk. Then there is another sign that often appears shortly before everything changes. They almost confess. There comes a moment when it feels like something important is about to happen. The conversation is moving normally. Everything feels comfortable. Then suddenly they pause. Their words slow down. Their expression changes. A sentence begins differently than expected. For a brief second, it feels like they are about to reveal something significant. Then it disappears. They hesitate. They change direction. They switch topics. They laugh lightly and move on. On the surface, it seems insignificant. But you can feel that something was there. Something almost happened. Something important came close to being spoken. What is really happening is that they have reached the edge of the truth. For a long time, they have carried these feelings quietly. They have protected them. They have hidden them. They have analyzed them endlessly. Now the emotions have become too strong to ignore. The urge to finally be honest becomes real. It becomes difficult to keep pretending everything feels ordinary. For a brief moment, honesty feels possible. The words move closer to the surface. The confession almost happens. Then fear arrives. Fear of rejection, fear of embarrassment, fear of changing the relationship forever. Fear of hearing an answer they do not want to hear. Fear that once the truth is spoken, there is no way to take it back. So they stop. Not because they no longer want to tell you, not because the feelings disappeared, quite the opposite. They stop because the feelings have become so important that the risk feels enormous. Telling you means crossing a line they have been standing behind for a very long time. It means stepping into uncertainty. It means placing something precious in someone else's hands. Sometimes you can see it in their body language, a breath they take but never fully release, a glance that lasts slightly longer than normal, a moment of silence that feels unusually heavy, a sentence that begins confidently but never reaches its destination. These moments are easy to miss, yet they carry enormous meaning. Because for a second, the truth was trying to emerge. For a second, everything hidden inside them came close to becoming visible. And the fact that they stopped does not mean the feeling is fading. It often means the opposite. It means the feeling is becoming impossible to ignore. It means the truth is getting closer to being spoken. There is also something important many people misunderstand. These feelings rarely begin where others think they do. Most people assume strong emotions appear suddenly. They assume attraction begins recently, They assume a confession is the start of the story. But for the person carrying these feelings, the story usually began much earlier. It often started during a moment that seemed completely ordinary. A brief conversation, a simple interaction, a shared experience, a small act of kindness. A moment that passed quickly for you, but remained with them. Perhaps it was the way you listened. Perhaps it was the way you treated them. Perhaps it was the way you made them feel seen. Perhaps it was simply the way you showed up as yourself. Whatever it was, something stayed with them. While life continued moving forward, a part of them remained connected to that moment. They returned to it repeatedly, not dramatically, not obsessively, but quietly, consistently. Over time, that feeling grew, without announcements, without grand gestures, without anyone noticing. You slowly became part of their inner world, a familiar thought, a meaningful presence, someone whose importance increased little by little. That is why all the signs you see now did not appear out of nowhere. The hesitation, the attention, the eye contact, the memories, the emotional shifts, the increased presence, the almost confessions. None of these things appeared suddenly. They are the result of something that has been building beneath the surface for a long time. Each small moment added another layer. Each interaction carried a little more meaning. Each passing day made the feeling harder to ignore. So when the confession finally happens, it will not feel sudden to them. It may seem unexpected from the outside, but inside their world, it will feel like the conclusion of a journey that has been unfolding for months or even years. It will feel like something they have carried quietly for a very long time, finally finding its way into words. At the same time, it is important to remember something. Not every sign means someone is secretly in love. Sometimes people are naturally warm. Sometimes they are simply comfortable around you. Sometimes familiarity creates closeness that has nothing to do with romance. Human behavior can appear deeper than it really is. Not every glance carries hidden meaning. Not every memory carries emotional weight. Not every act of attention is a sign of love. That is why assumptions can be dangerous. Real understanding comes from looking at the whole picture rather than a single moment. But when genuine feelings exist, they rarely remain hidden forever. They grow. They find expression. They reveal themselves through actions, patterns, and moments of honesty. Eventually, they become too important to keep locked away. So instead of searching for certainty in every small signal, pay attention to what feels authentic. Pay attention to what remains consistent over time. Pay attention to what is mutual rather than imagined. Because in the end, the truth is not found only in someone's behavior. The truth is found in whether two people are willing to meet each other openly, honestly, and without fear. That is where real connection begins. And that is where hidden feelings finally become something real.